Okay, I'm going to call to order the,
Can I just,
go ahead.
sorry, Kim, I've got some members of the public looking how to dial in tonight. Is there a dial-in number, or is it the webinar link that they need to use?
It's the webinar link, is it not, Dean? And then the password is 465879. Is that correct? Ken, Dean?
Dean stepped away.
That's
Ken's
correct. It's a webinar link.
It's a webinar link. You would have to go to the agenda to pull up that link, correct, Ken?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
You should also be able to call in and use that password if you just want to do phone only.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying. I have a really bad internet connection tonight too. Everybody's in and out on me. All right, I'm just gonna do it myself.
Oh, the call-in number, is there a different call-in number for the public, Ken? Could you provide the call-in number?
I think we just did a webinar link. We did not do call-in.
Okay, I see it.
Yep.
I see that I could dial up on the webinar invitation. I have phone numbers.
Yeah, there might be some that are offered when you go to that link. Sometimes some numbers you can call into, but I think we just shared out the link. I don't know if we enabled the phone calling in for it.
Okay, so they'll have to go to the link. All right, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. As chair of the Timberlane Regional School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by utilizing Zoom for this meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen by accessing the webinar link and using the password 465879. The link is provided on the agenda for the Timberlane Regional School Board on the board's website. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for access to the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom. Instructions have been provided at the Timberlane Regional School Board's website at public.timberlane.net/SAU/TRSB. If anybody has a problem, please call 382-6541, extension 3955. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. Kat, could you take the attendance? And I would remind members to state their presence. Also state whether there's anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law.
Brian Boyle.
Brian, you need to unmute. He's not currently in the room, so please move on and mark him as absent.
He just unmuted.
Oh, there he is.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, Brian Boyle, I'm here. I have my wife present in the home, not in the room.
Lee Dewey.
I am present. I am alone in my office. There are other members of my household present in the home.
Kim Farah.
I'm here. I'm by myself in my office. I do have other members of the family in the home.
Barbara Kishka.
Present. I'm alone in the room, and I have other members in the house outside the room.
Sheila Lowe's.
Here, alone in the house.
Sarah McNamara.
I'm here. I am alone in my room, but there are other members of my family in the house.
Sean O'Neill.
I'm here. I'm in my office, and there's other members in my household that are not in this room.
Kristen Savage. Jennifer Silva.
I am here. Other members of my household are present in the house, but not in the room.
Dr. Metzler.
I am here, and I am alone in my office, but other members of my family are in the house.
And Kyle Duffy.
I am present. I am alone in the room, but there are other members of my family in the house.
Thank you very much, everybody. The roll is complete.
Thank you. If you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll start. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of
of
the United States
of
States of America, and to the republic
for which it stands,
and
one nation,
nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty
and
and
justice.
justice for all.
Was kind of an antiphonal sort of Pledge of Allegiance, but thank you. So the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. The minutes are posted in the on the website. There are two sets of minutes. We'll do the reorganizational meeting minutes first. So I'll entertain a motion to bring those to the floor.
Make that
I
motion.
motion. I second.
Sheila makes the motion. Barbara Kitska seconds. Is there any discussion on the minutes on the reorganizational meeting? I'll give people just a second. Not hearing any comments, I will call the question. Kat, could you please take a roll call vote on the approval of the March 31st reorganizational board meeting minutes?
Certainly. Mr. Boyle.
Yes.
Mr. Doobie.
Yes.
Dr. Farah.
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka.
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's.
Yes.
Mrs. Mockamer.
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill.
Yes.
Mrs. Savage. And Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the March 31st special business meeting minutes.
I move the motion for the minutes.
Barbara moves the motion.
Second.
Lee seconds.
Discussion?
Any discussion? Sheila, did you have a question on the minutes or?
Kat, last week I read into the minutes because we had a problem with video and that was not captured in these minutes.
Okay, I can edit.
So there's a request to add into the minutes the motion from the previous meeting regarding documentation set up to the Department of Education.
It's the exact motion that was made in the minutes from last week. Just reiterated because we had a problem with that week's video. There was some problem with the video and that motion was not on the video. So I wanted to make sure it was reiterated. But it doesn't appear to be in these minutes either. So if we could just add that, I would appreciate it.
Certainly, I will take care of it.
Thank you. How was that, Kim?
Okay, thank you. There any other comments on the March 31st minutes of the special business meeting? If not, Kat, could you take a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Boyle.
Yes.
Mr. Doobie.
Yes.
Dr. Farah.
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka.
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Muckamer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage. I see her on, but she's not answering yet.
Yeah, her audio, I think she's having a problem with her audio.
Okay. Mrs. Silva,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So that vote then will be 8-0 because we will assume that Kristen is really not here because she didn't answer. I know we see her, but she's not responding. Okay, so moving on. Mr. Duffy, did you have anything that you would like to share with the board?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. So first of all, I think everybody's really excited that we started Zoom calls this week. I think that's going to be a super important tool for all of our teachers and students to be using together over the next however many weeks this ends up being. I reached out and got some student responses. They were pretty mixed responses before we started Zoom calls, but it seems to be that there's a more positive trend in those responses and what I'm getting from kind of the zeitgeist of everybody. Obviously, there's good and bad to the situation. The good being that we're now able to Zoom call and we're able to conference with our teachers and directly have those interactions, but still it's not quite the same as being able to ask your teacher a question during, after, or before class. But I think we're really seeing the positivity in the situation and we're working through it. I mean, one student response said that it's more clear now than ever how much teachers really care about their students. So I think the teachers are really putting in a lot of effort for the most part on their assignments and making sure that their students are well taken care of. So I'm very proud of the teachers for making sure that that gets done. And the students are very proud of them for that as well, because they want to make sure that they continue learning over this extended period of time. I saw that the Meals on Wheels food assistance program seems to be getting going, and that's fantastic to hear. I think that's very important for a lot of our families in the district, and I'm glad that we've kind of established this program. Aside from that, I think we're going to keep seeing positive trends in the way things are going for the students in terms of their learning with the Zoom calls, and I'm just very excited to continue seeing where we go with this. I think there's been great staff positivity. The Daily Owls news has been coming out every day of the school week, and I think that's definitely added to a positive culture during this time, and the teachers are really putting in that effort. So I appreciate all the teachers' hard work, and I appreciate all the bus company and the food staff for making sure that these Meals on Wheels program get done. So thank you.
Thank you. That was a great update. I'm glad to hear that the Zoom is working. I did get a call from a couple parents today that say they really appreciate the fact that the teachers are really reaching out to students and maintaining contact. So thank you. I assume there are no delegates and individuals because we are online. So let's move on to current business. The first item on the agenda is the athletic trainer contract review and renewal. This is pretty much an annual item. You will see the contract in your agenda packets. Dr. Metzler, are you presenting, or is Mr. Fantasia on here?
It should be Mr. Fantasia, and he's having trouble getting into this webinar for some reason. So Dean and Ken are trying to get him set up just now,
Okay.
but there aren't any changes to the contract. It's pretty much the same contract. I don't believe there's been an increase either, but I'd rather have him speak to it if he could.
Okay.
Can I ask a question to Kyle?
Sure, go ahead, Jen.
What is the Meals on Wheels program?
No, I don't think he was referring to that. I think he was referring to the fact that today was the first day that they rolled out the lunch program to students in the district. Is that what you were referring to, Mr.
That is what I
Duffy?
was referring to, correct.
And I think
Okay, so nothing to do with the.
We'll have an update on that this later in the agenda.
Okay, thanks.
So we don't have anybody to address the athletic training contract. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda on the facilities, and we'll come back to the athletic training contract when we have that taken care of, the problem getting people on. So can we move on to facilities projects?
Okay, Gary Paradise and Jeff Dowd are prepared to respond.
Yep.
Before they do, hold on one second. Did we just get an update like 5:30, 6 o'clock here?
Yeah.
Is it? So in the agenda packet, this is, I don't know if you're going to be able to show this on the screen or not, because I'm a little confused. I see. Okay, what's been completed? Okay, go ahead. I'm reading this while we're talking. So go ahead, Mr. Paradis and Mr. Dowd.
I will start on that executive summary. You'll see facilities, open projects, and project recommendations. So just to try and keep things as straightforward as possible for everyone on the board and for all of us who are reviewing this document, what I've put together is, as you've requested, and Gary and I have put together, a list of those projects that we have in process, that we've completed, and that will be starting as part of this fiscal year. You'll see initially the budget is $100,000 in our site improvement account, $400,000 in our building improvements account, and $531,000 for our Performing Arts Center wall project, which was approved by the voters, giving us a total budget in those areas, which are generally those larger item, larger repair, larger project areas of $1,031,000. So I've listed it under 1920 projects. You'll see all the projects by school, boiler replacement, some miscellaneous projects that we've had to do going along. And the total of the projects is $990,828 out of the current year budget. That leaves $40,000 left to be spent. What's not included in that budget is the boiler replacement for the high school, which is at $225,000. So I've listed that on the line below it.
I'm sorry, I've got to interrupt. Sorry, Jeff, I'm sorry. This is Jen. I can't open this document. It wasn't uploaded until just before this meeting. Is there a way to share the screen so I can try and follow along? Because I'm having a hard time following anything that you're saying right now without having a document to look at.
I have no problem. Ken or Dee, am I okay to share?
You should be able to share, Jeff.
All right.
Thank you.
There you go. Thanks.
That help? Excellent.
Yes, because with everybody in my house streaming and trying to get this on live stream and download a document, it's just not working out.
It actually is a lot easier for me to be able to present in this format. Everyone's looking at the same schedule. So as I said, these are the projects. This is the total budget is right here, $1,031,000. You'll see a listing of all of the projects by location, their status, cost or estimated cost, and what account it's coming from. All of the projects that you see listed are currently funded. Let's just say funded. You'll see a budget of $1,031,000. Total projects estimated at $990,828, leaving $40,172 remaining in that budget, in those budget lines. We also have a boiler replacement for the high school at $225,000, which is not currently in the budget, and I suspect we'll have a discussion whether that should be in the budget and how to get it into the budget after. We did include the budget items for or the boiler replacements for Atkinson Academy, and we did include Pollard as well. So I think those were some of the things that we were looking into, and those are in process as we speak. We did get a quote for the high school boiler replacement as well at $225,000, which again is at the bottom, and really wanted to discuss that with the board before proceeding. I will let you take a look at the projects that we have underway, and let me know if you have any comments or questions, and if you want to take a moment to go through it, that's fine.
I have a question on the boiler. Was the boiler slated to be replaced during this budget year?
No, actually, that was slated to be replaced in the next budget year.
So then why is it funding needed?
If that was something that we were interested in doing in the current year.
But we don't have enough capital funds left to do that, right?
Correct.
So I guess the answer is no.
Perfect.
Could you tell me two quick questions?
Sure.
Is the pack wall coming in at 531,000? And I know there's been some other repair that has to be done. Is
There
that
has.
is that the number 531? Is that really the true number?
531 is the number, and you'll
Okay.
see below it, I've listed separately in progress the discovery of some latent, just not wholly unexpected damage repair which needs to occur.
Right.
Estimated about $12,000. So I've listed it as a separate line item just so we all know, we all agreed 531 was the price. Anything beyond that, I've broken out so that we can see.
Okay. So 40,000 left to spend is pretty close, because I think last year, didn't we put away maybe 34,000 or something after the end of the year? I mean, you can't cut it to zero. It's hard to, but
No, last year was an interesting year, Kim, because I think we actually designated some projects, more maintenance projects in nature, and we did spend all the way through capital, and I think with some roof repairs or roof replacements, and we actually did some like budget transfers to take care of those.
oh, right, that was a year before. Okay.
Yeah.
How much is in the next fiscal year for capital?
Wait a minute. Can I ask a question on this before we go there?
Sure. I'm just asking just to kind of think ahead here. Go ahead, Sheila.
Is Gary on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Gary.
Okay. Yep.
It's my understanding that we put electricity to the sign at Sandown Central.
No, we have
The
not put
TLC?
electricity. No, and that's a misconception. When we were doing a repair over there, I convinced Busby Construction to run me a trench to that sign.
Okay.
And all we did was just run an underground pipe to make provisions for electric.
Okay, because
nothing.
you did go to the zoning board to get.
I did. That was a while ago, and that wasn't going to take place probably till the summer.
I'm sorry, say that again. It's not going to take place what?
It's not going to take place as of yet.
Okay.
But I'm making provisions for it. And I
think that would be the quickest way I can help you.
I want to get everything in motion.
Your email address, please?
Do we have any idea how much this is going to be?
No, we're doing it in-house.
We're doing it in-house.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So moving on to next year.
Oh, okay.
What
This
I'm
is
gonna
next
do
year's
is I'm gonna
budget?
email you, so that's shoreline counseling.
Somebody has to
Going
mute.
back to the.
Hey, Dean, we can hear you, bud.
Oh,
Thanks, Dean. So, Dr. Farah, on the first one there, with so many boiler replacements, are we getting RFPs, or how do we figure
Yes.
out how much those cost?
Yep, the RFPs that went out, we had bids, and we had a bid opening last month.
Okay, thank
So
you.
just to, and I know Barbara, you're newer to the board. What we do initially to try and price these out to get a budget number is we will ask a vendor or try and validate some numbers out. Typically, we aren't able to get more than one bid, more than one, and I won't say a bid, more than one cost estimate. It makes it very difficult for vendors to provide those cost estimates because for every project like this, unless we get a board waiver, we're going to a full RFP, request for proposal, request for quote process. And as a result of that, their estimate is known, and all someone would have to do is go out and underbid that in the RFP process. So we'll typically get a budget number, and then when we're ready to engage in the project, we'll go out, do a full-scale RFP, RFQ, and review any information we need to with vendors, potential vendors, and accept and review all the bid options that come in.
So do those usually come in under or over the budgeted number?
That is typically what I've seen since I've been here. They've been typically running a little over.
But if they've been over, it's typically because we're a year away on our pricing.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. So Kim, this is the 2021 total budget between those two accounts, 150 in the site improvements and 892 in those building improvement line, in that building improvement line, for a total budget of $1,042,000. So what we've done here is taken for 2020, 2021, all those projects that we have looked at on the CIP and brought into this schedule for that year. with the exception that if there was anything that we saw that needed to be done, alternatively, we've included that as well on this schedule. But I don't really think that there's too much in here that isn't, and I'll say sort of CIP related. Going through the schools from Danville all the way down to the middle school, we're looking at a total budget of $1,042,000. Obviously, with a total of $1,326,000, we're short $284,000. This does not include the roof listed here, or sorry, the boiler. That boiler replacement for $225,000 is not included in that number. So if we were to do that boiler replacement in the 21 fiscal year, we would add that on top. And I don't look at this as daunting. I think that we have what we have, and it's really up to the board as to what takes priority, what we're looking at, what the goals are for the year based on the projects that we have laid out for us. In addition to that, while the above projects are CIP indicated, at the bottom of the schedule, you'll see some projects that are recommended for consideration. So these weren't part of the CIP process, but as we've gone along, for example, one of them is the replacement of exterior lights to LED for $62,000. We're working with the electric company now to understand the incentives that are involved with that. For the high school, obviously we're going to need to replace the windows and walls there. It would be best to have that project engineered. So there's some money there for engineering. Obviously we have the track, which has been an issue for a while. I believe we had talked about maybe scaling down that project, so we've put in $250,000. And obviously at the end of the year, we had a robust discussion on the PE locker rooms and remodels for the high school, both the boys and the girls. We really have no idea what the scope of that would be, but those are on here for consideration just so we don't miss anything in the big picture.
Okay, thank you. The problem that I have with this entire list is that there was no CIP essentially last year for a variety of reasons. Some of these are maybe priorities. We don't know what other priorities have creeped up here in the last 2 years. And we really need two things before we move on these. We need the CIP committee to get up and running by the guidelines. It should be up and running in April and May, and any CIP project should be in there. So this really needs to get reconstructed and things moved around. Some of these things I see on here we've talked about that may or may not be really something that we want to put the money into right away. So we need a CIP. We're going to need a CIP committee, and we'll talk about this with the committees. And that will be on the next agenda as to when those meetings are. And we also need a 5-year facilities plan, which is one of the school board goals for this year. So those are two, at least in my mind, priorities that we need to get. One of the things, if you scroll down on this, and this is just my personal opinion, these LED lights at $62,000, if we have the money in this year's budget, if we can pull a little money from somewhere else, let's get these done, because this is a short amount of money for what is a huge long-term savings in terms of energy over the course of several years. Those sorts of things, and in my mind, building management systems, those should be a top priority, and we should be trying to move forward those as soon as possible. It's kind of disappointing to see that we don't. I thought we had a building management system in the high school already. We don't. It just needs to be upgraded. Anyway, this discussion needs to be a CIP discussion, not what the board wants. We're not looking at, we need a big picture 5-year plan, and that CIP needs to be revisited almost in its entirety at this point. Brian, are you there? Do you agree?
I agree. I am here. And I think this is, I think that's what they did is a good start, because obviously they were, we had a phone call with myself, Jeff and Gary, and to come up with a proposed projects for this year. So we got to start somewhere. You know?
I agree. We have to start somewhere, but I think we need to be looking at a longer term plan, and we need to take a look at that CIP and also see if there's anything else that's come into it really within the last 2 years. Okay.
Makes sense.
Anybody else have any questions on this? But I really think
I do.
need to do some work on planning for next year.
I have a question, Kim.
Yeah.
Actually, a couple things. I'm looking into next year. Well, first of all, are these the rest of the boilers? Do we have any, once these boilers are replaced, are we done with boilers?
The only other school would be the middle school. Those have, right now we have 4 gas boilers and all of them are functioning. So we haven't had any problems, knock on wood, with those as of yet. And they are older boilers, but they're still efficient and they're still running pretty good.
Okay, so, but in
Wait,
all the
Sheila,
other,
Sheila, wait, can I jump in here? I would like an action item. I would like the board for the next meeting to have an executive summary of each building in the district and the number and age of the boilers. So we have a big picture here.
thank you. What I was looking for, because we don't know what we've replaced, what we haven't replaced at this point, and I'd like to get some of these, personally, I'd like to see the roofs and the boilers get taken care of. So that was my second question is Timberlane Regional Middle School. I believe way back when, after the public hearing, we asked for sections of roof replacement. And there were different sections of roof. Do you remember this, Kim? That we asked for estimates? So
Yeah, the CIP had different sections of roofs and we did ask for sections up to $500,000 and then what we were provided was $1 million.
$1 million.
It looks like this is the roof update.
This is the roof that we are talking about.
Yep.
Right here is this 345 is what we had asked for after the public hearing.
Right, but it looks like, that's okay, keep the roof update, Sheila. Look now, it looks like, and again, I think this all needs to be discussed at the CIP and figured out here because it's very confusing if you're not looking at the whole picture.
With the picture, I think, Jeff, if you scroll down, right, you can see that picture.
Oh my gosh.
That one.
Okay. So Gary, maybe you can let me know, so we have 5 sections now.
Right, so section 1 is the one that's the music wing.
Right.
The two red ones on either side of the number 1 are metal roofs. Those don't need to be replaced. The green section is the gym, which is still under warranty. And then 3, 4, and 5 are your recommendations. 1, 3, 4, and 5.
1, 3, 4, and 5. So where, I'm sorry, Gary, but I have to ask
Yep.
this. Where's the 7-8 wing? What does
3
that?
and 3 and 5 is a 7-8 wing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions on these facilities projects? So we'll come back to these in a couple, I don't know, maybe about a month after the CIP has had a time to sit down and meet.
Sure.
That's fine. Kim, if I could ask just to help on our planning end and prioritization end, I think that you had raised, and I'm going to scroll up, so I apologize. I don't want to get anyone sick here. Parsec, you'd mentioned the priority as you were seeing it would be the exterior lights to LED for 62,000. Would it be the general consensus of the board that is a priority that we should make sure that we can get as an action item to see what we can do to get it done in the current year?
I would. I mean, you're pretty close to having that number anyway. Do we want to make is there anybody opposed, without having to go through a formal vote, is there anybody on the board opposed to trying to get this done in the current year funds to get these lights replaced? Because, you know, the payback on something like this, I think is, Gary, how long? Under 5 years, probably.
I would think, yeah, I would think less than that. And this is us doing it. This is us doing it in the house, and the electrician is working with Unitel and another, I think it's New Hampshire Co-op, maybe,
And I mean,
for rebates.
And this is something that can be done. There's no students on campus now, so it shouldn't be hard to be putting things up or moving things around. So so I'm going to ask again, is there anybody opposed to getting this done as soon as possible? Okay, so the consensus of the board is, sorry, who was that?
This is Barbara. So I'm all for this, and I would like to have some eyes on that because we've just recently replaced our streetlights in Plasto with the LEDs, and there's things to be considered like the frequency and the positioning and things like that. And I just want to be able to be in the loop on that.
I'm sorry. So how do you want to be kept in the loop? What are you looking for?
I just want to be able to review the proposal and make sure that the frequency is pleasant and efficient and things like that. We had a whole lot of things we did for the Plasto LEDs, and there's some ways that you could go wrong.
Huh. Okay. How am I going to make sure this is? Are we going out for an RFP on this, or is this?
This is in-house.
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's in-house, what's the issue here? If this is an in-house job.
Well, it's just.
Barbara, I think what we're doing is just replacing one for one. We're not adding new parking lot lights or anything like that.
Oh, no, but the frequency, the hertz, things
Oh,
like
okay,
that. Is it
yeah,
blue? Is it
okay.
yellow?
Now I know. All
Is
right,
the
I understand what you're
positioning
saying
so
now.
you can have dark sky? Is it, there's things.
Okay, I wasn't sure what you were.
Sorry to not be clear.
Nope, that's fine.
Hi, this is Sean. Maybe just getting the specifications on the LED lighting fixtures and just sending that to the board would be probably sufficient.
Yes, please.
Sure.
Okay. So that's another action, is the LED specifications.
Perfect, Kim. I'd like to thank the board for that consensus. I think that we're doing really well with the projects that we have going on in the current year. And it looks like we have some things to go after to allow us to close the gap on the budget. So thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, I'm going to move back. Oh, screen came back. I'm going to move back to the athletic trainer contract. It looks like Mr. Fantasia is on the screen here.
Hey,
So
Kim?
if we could go back to that, that'd be good. Yes?
I'd like to make a motion to defer that. That contract wasn't posted till just after 5 o'clock this evening. I haven't had a chance to vote. If people want to move forward on it, that's fine. I'll abstain, but I'll make a motion to defer that.
Okay, I'll ask Mr. Fantasia, is there any reason why we cannot, is there a timeline that we have to meet on this contract?
I don't believe that there is a timeline right now. I know that I had sent something in because there was a request for additional time by Access Sports. They're dealing with just like everyone else, they're dealing with their day-to-day routines. But I was just asked to reach out to them and report back what they responded to us. We're very happy with them. Just so that everyone knows, we are very happy with their work. They've been great with us. They do, I would say, above and beyond just the daily care. So yeah, I don't necessarily think there's a deadline right now for you.
Okay. And maybe I'm looking at the wrong one, but I'm looking at the contract here and it says 1920. All right, shouldn't this be the 2021 contract?
Right. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No.
I had requested Access to send us a 2021 contract, and they had asked us to give them some additional time before they work on next year's contracts, because they're going through what everyone else is going through right now and dealing with the coronavirus and everything else. So they weren't prepared yet, and they were asking for our patience. They had not given me a definitive date on when they could, but they said as soon as they can, they will get out a new contract for us to look at.
Okay, great. So this needs to go on to a subsequent meeting. Once we get a new contract, Mr. Fantasia, if you could let the superintendent know, we'll put it back on the agenda for a vote.
Yes, that's absolutely fine.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, so moving on to remote instruction update. This is informational. I'll let Dr. Metzler take the lead here. I'm not sure who's presenting what.
Great, thank you, Dr. Farah. We had an opportunity during our superintendent's leadership team meeting this week to go through quite a few of these items. It's pretty comprehensive, looking at attendance, participation, special education, food service, contractual obligations. So we have Lucy Kanotis and Mark Pedersen, and they're gonna walk you through those executive summaries, if that's okay.
Will
whenever
they
they're
be
ready.
able to share it so everybody can see?
I think they can share. You know, one thing I just figured out too. I don't know. Is these we find out all these like nice little fun facts. If you're muted and you hold your space bar down, that temporarily unmutes you and you can speak, and then you let go of the space bar and you're muted again. So that's just another little fun fact with this whole Zoom thing.
Thank you, Dr. Metzler. I didn't know that one. Ken, are you speaking to video conferencing first?
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you guys an update on this one item here. So as everyone knows, we had the board ratified the MOU with the optional video conferencing last week with the TTA. We talked a little bit last week about some of the prep work we did so we could hit the ground running with video conferencing before the board even met last week, and that included establishing guidelines and best practices around the use of Zoom. And we also sent out the video conferencing permission forms to the parents and guardians. The very next day after you guys met on Wednesday the 1st, we held 2 Zoom conferences for professional staff around how to use Zoom and again, talk about best practices and best ways to secure Zoom sessions. We had about 175 participants between those 2 sessions. And I just want to say, I think all of us, the board, the TTA, the administration, by waiting a couple weeks and putting this in safely and sanely, we learned from other districts in developing our guidelines and best practices. And it also allowed Zoom to make some security enhancements, which you may have read about in the past couple of weeks. We actually had already 2 more sessions this week. On Monday and Wednesday, we had another about 100 professional staff attend those. Has not been announced yet. I'm going to do this tomorrow, but we're going to do a session next week as well. All sessions had a Q&A segment with them that allowed staff to ask questions and get their questions answered. Now the permission forms that went out, we sent out again to those that have not responded. And we're checking those forms several times a day. And when they come in the affirmative, we enable Zoom capabilities for those students. And the teachers also have lists that they're going off of that are, I think they're mostly real time in terms of who's opted in. Of course, teachers have been asked to only allow those that have turned in the permission slips in the affirmative to participate in the Zoom conferences. And today we also sent out another optional and confidential thought exchange. If you recall, we did this a couple weeks ago when remote learning kicked off. This was a more pointed question. It's still open-ended. The question was exactly what thoughts, questions, or ideas do you have around using the optional video conferencing with your students. We're going to keep this open through the end of the day Monday and analyze the results. We're hoping this will help us provide more pointed support for those that partake in this optional endeavor. And we also attached an optional and anonymous survey on that thought exchange asking a question, very simple, it's like a 2-question survey on remote conferencing usage. Just asking, have they partaken in a video conference with their students? And if not, do they intend to at some point? So that's, we'll have some, again, that wraps up on Monday. We'll have some information for you at your next meeting around the thought exchange and that poll. Of course, it won't be scientific in any stretch, but at least, some anecdotal evidence we'll have. So I don't know if you had any questions on this section. If you want to have Mark and Lucy do the other 2, which are attendance and participation plans and grading, and then ask your questions at the end of this, or take it part by part.
Does anybody have any questions on this section?
It's Jen.
Yep.
So, yeah, I have a lot of questions actually. I don't know if I should wait until after or not. The word optional is coming up again and again and again, and I still remain very, very concerned about this being so optional for everybody, because for students who want the option to do it. If the teachers are not doing it, then there is no real option for the students. So it's not really optional.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I think
I
that's
think it's a
that was
huge
the MOU that
advantage.
was signed. And some teachers have different situations. I mean, some teachers have multiple kids at home running around and they're home alone with them. You know, so it's not I don't think it's an option for every single teacher out there. And that's part of the reason that's probably was in that MOU and why it was drafted as such.
Well, maybe somebody can speak to why it was drafted as such, because, you know, we're all trying to work from home. We all have these circumstances. We're all in the same boat here. But to have the kids have no opportunity to have any interaction with their teachers like that, I'm sorry, I think it's a huge disservice. Every student learns differently. We have the tools available. I think we should be, you know, doing the best that we can to be able to really engage our students. And this is a huge thing that's missing. My kids both have a couple classes that have taken advantage of the Zoom conferencing, and you know, the feedback I've gotten from them has been really positive. Emailing back and forth to get a question answered is very, very inefficient.
There any other questions on that? Jen, you know, I hear you in some respects, but I know there are some people have issues with Zoom. Some people are more technologically savvy. Some people are still working hard to come on board. This is a tough time, I know from my own experiences. So I think all we can do is support teachers. I know some school districts I heard just said no more Zoom. So I think in some respects it's good that we're at least have something. And you know, if parents feel like they're not getting the support from their teachers, then I'd recommend doing what I always do, is if you contact the teacher. If they don't contact you, then go to the building administrator.
Hey, Kim, could I interject here for a second?
Yep.
What I like to do is at least for me, I know these are troubling times, and you know, there's a lot of chaos going along with this, and it's great that we're starting to introduce video conferencing for a tool for our teachers. But what I like to see is a roadmap, and saying, you know, on day one when we started implementing, nobody was doing video conferencing. You know, how many teachers are implementing that? How many students do they interface with? And seeing a trend line as more and more teachers get more familiar with it, it's going to grow, and seeing that development, you know, from, you know, like a weekly update where as our school board meetings come, you know, we're going to get ask for those updates so that we can see that more and more students are participating in these kind of educational programs that we believe are all enhanced from the, let's call it basically the blizzard bag equivalent that we were experiencing in our first, you know, week before we started introducing video.
Okay, I'm not in disagreement with that, doing an update, but I think, you know, there has to be some realization that not every class is going to have the teacher on Zoom for whatever the whole class period is. There are a lot of good resources out there, just like if teachers are having students work on group projects. But I'm not saying that that's not a good idea. So I think more frequent, I mean, it would be nice to be updated, the board to be updated, and by the staff as to if we're making progress, or do you find more people are using it. I would imagine the school account must have some idea, maybe Ken or Dean knows, about what the usage is in terms of hourly, weekly usage. Ken, can you track that on the district's account?
The Zoom usage?
Yeah, just in terms of total hours or something. I just kind of throwing it out there.
I don't believe so. At least not with the, you know, they're giving us the pro version. Is the equivalency. I do not believe that does any sort of centralized administrative reporting. I will certainly look into it, and I don't think I just don't think that's possible.
Okay.
But I'll look into it.
Kim, I just want to be clear. I'm not talking about, you know, live instruction, whole classes on Zoom. I'm talking about something, you know, more similar to how VLAX has done this. I mean, VLAX has been doing online education for quite some time now. And the students do have some accountability to themselves, to their work, to their teachers, and vice versa, that they are checking in, you know, maybe once a week, just to go over, these are the assignments I've done, or this is where I'm at, or this is what I need help with, or just that time to be able to check in. Versus if this is completely optional, we are going to have some kids who do the bare minimum, I guess, and are just basically doing packets of work and never having any conversation or any kind of check-in. I'm sorry. I think it's a huge disservice. That's my opinion.
Well, I think the next section will speak a little bit more to, and I'm familiar with VLAX because my daughter took a couple of classes on VLAX. So I think the next section here, maybe we should move on to the attendance plan and the participation plan, because I do think it kind of speaks to what you're saying about checking in. So I'm not sure who's presenting this next section, but maybe that'll help.
Thank you, Dr. Farah. Lucy Kanotis, I'm going to speak a little bit to this, and Mark Pedersen will jump in, I'm sure. Good evening. So you'll see in your executive summary that based on the state guidance, the Timberlane Regional School District is considering participation as attendance. The state has provided guidance that engagement of all students is the priority focus at this time. Timberlane's process during remote instruction and support is that teachers release weekly assignments each Monday by 4 p.m. Students participate asynchronously through the week in each assignment. Students can participate in any and all ways, including completing assignments, engaging in video conferencing if offered and available, and communicating with teachers through either Google Classroom or email. As we reported last week, we now have all students with technology capabilities at home, K through 12, on Google Classroom, which is something new to us, as K to 2 had not had Google Classroom prior. So we're seeing a lot of new engagement based on the availability of Chromebooks that were released, and that teachers are able to screencast and record lessons for students. Again, our focus is on participation, and we have a plan in place to support all students and families as best we can remotely. So you'll see in your executive summary that our plan is that Wednesday of each week, teachers are communicating with administrators, any student who is not participating. The administrators and counselors are reaching out to families and providing any assistance they can, creating plans to get those students engaged in learning. And so while we are technically tracking attendance, our focus is on creating plans for students to participate in meaningful academics and supporting each situation equitably instead of equally.
Sorry. Thank you. Are there any questions on that section?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
I'll go with Sheila, then Jen.
Did this just start? We're in week 4. So I guess what I'm asking is, I understand the Chromebooks went out. We know who the Chromebooks went to. So we know who didn't have access to a Chromebook. But my question is, when did this begin that we're checking in with the administrators on who is not participating? Because we're in week 4 here. And I'm a little concerned at the numbers of not participating, not turning in work, that kind of thing. So I'd like to know when this is beginning.
Sure. I don't have any of those numbers about who's not participating or turning in work at this time in front of me. We have been asking for teachers to turn those names in since week 2. and administrators and counselors are sort of keeping those names confidentially and working with families. So yes, we're in week 4, but my understanding, my knowledge is that people have been reaching out since week 1 ended.
Okay. And do we still have students out there that do not have access to internet or Chromebooks, Ken?
I'm sure there's 3,500 students in the district. I'm sure there's some, Sheila. We're going to have another event on Tuesday. The schools are reaching out to those that may have missed the first event for whatever
Perfect.
reason.
Okay.
So they will have another opportunity to come in again and get a Chromebook. And yeah, so we're hoping to get the remaining students that, or maybe if they've had a Chromebook that the screen is broken in the meantime, or keys
Right.
broke. Things are they're not indestructible. There's gonna be mishaps and drops and things of that nature. So we do have things in place to help those students that have broken devices as well.
Okay, fantastic. So we're going to take that out of the equation. I guess, Lucy, what I'm looking for is I'm not looking for any privacy inquiries, no FERPA violations. I'm not looking for that. What I'm looking for is to see what kind of a participation rate that we have, that we're reaching out to all of our students, that all of our students are supported one way or another.
Sure, absolutely. I can tell you I don't have hard numbers, at least at the elementary level. Each building has communicated as of last week. There are, between 5 and 9 families at each building that are not participating for whatever reason. Administrators and counselors have made contact with all of those families. And I want to make sure that, we are clear that even students who don't have technology access, from week 1, there has been communication, whether that's an administrator makes a phone call and talks to parents and, provides all assignments and activities that way. We have several teachers, especially in our youngest grades, who are themselves reaching out to families. And certainly emails. When we left school on the 13th of March, we had just 2 families at the elementary level who did not have an email access on file. So when we left at 4 o'clock on that Friday, we knew who we needed to get in touch with right away, and we knew that we had an ability to communicate with all families.
What I'm trying to do is make sure that we are in compliance, Lucy. That's all. That's what I'm looking for. I want to make sure that this district is in compliance with the state, and that we're making sure that we reach out to each and every child.
Completely agree with you. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, I can just add at the secondary level, at Barry's staff, counseling staff has been doing a great job of reaching out to families. So I agree with you, Sheila. I believe that, we all feel that same way, and that we want to make sure that we can reach out to every single family that with kids who have whatever needs that they need, technology wise, and making sure that they're getting that work done. So we are reaching out. We're working on some streamlined ways of consolidating that data and making it easier for our counselors to do that work. But right now they're just getting emails from teachers. So we are working on a streamlined approach to that as we speak.
Okay, thank you. Yep. I'm hoping they come down. The numbers come down as we get better at this.
That's our goal. That's what we're hoping to do is every family that we can get in contact with, we connect a little bit better and get them to see the value of the work that we're asking them to do.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
So if there's no other things on the attendance participation piece, I'm going to.
There are.
Yeah, no, I still had some questions. So between our students doing blizzard bags, and reaching out to families to see who had Chromebooks, who needed internet access. Are we saying that as of today, we still don't know if every single student has access to the technology to complete the work?
I guess, so I can speak to elementary. Every student has access to complete work because it's an expectation that students who can't access technology have offline activities. You know, we really try to make sure that we offer similar assignments to students without expecting them to have the technology. We have a lot of families who are sharing 1 or 2 devices in a home. Is that what you're asking?
I don't understand why after a month we still don't know who in our district doesn't have access to technology, or why they're sharing 1 and 2 devices if we've had now, you know, handed out these Chromebooks to these extra students, so we should be 1-to-1.
So I think what we heard, the reason that we have another sort of release date on Tuesday is that there were parents who didn't come last time, whether they were, you know, not able to make it or they hadn't heard the message yet. So, you know, we do know who doesn't have Chromebooks. I think all administrators reached out to those families before the last distribution. And so we're following up with anyone who didn't attend last time on Tuesday.
Okay, so my next question was the, so it sounds like the teachers and the staff are accessing Zoom conferences. They are engaging with one another. They're getting the support, the education and whatnot that they need to move forward and be successful, correct?
I hope so. I mean, we've had several professional development sessions. We're in constant communication. We've asked for feedback or needs. I think we're reaching out, and so we're responding to anything that we hear.
And I think that's great. You know, and working remotely, I know that that kind of collaboration with your peers and contact with your supervisors is extremely important in helping you be successful. I guess what I'm getting at here is that that same model should hold true for our students. And they're really missing that piece of peer engagement and that contact with their, you know, teachers as their supervisors, if you will, to be able, you know, to continue to be successful, especially if we're looking at this through the whole school year, which we might be.
Sure. I mean, I can tell you anecdotally, I don't have numbers, but certainly since the last school board meeting last Tuesday, we've received a lot of positive feedback in teachers creating screencast recordings for students, or teachers trying out Zoom conferences with students, both from students, families, and the teachers. I don't, you know, we, as sort of Ken referenced, we put out a thought exchange to try to collect that information, but you know, some teachers didn't have PD until late last week. So, you know, we're, or even early this week. So I think you're seeing that people are getting their feet wet and getting started, but we don't have that. It's a consistent process.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as some teachers see more teachers finding value in it and being successful with it, and the kids really appreciating it and finding success, then more and more teachers might start doing it. You know, you go back to the fact that the TTA did have an MOU and it is optional for teachers. So although I can appreciate where you are coming from with the, you know, the value to it, you know, we also can't mandate that teachers are doing this as it is optional for teachers per the MOU.
Okay, any other questions?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes. So I appreciate your outreach to the students and making sure they have the technology and the internet to access the materials. I'm wondering, is there some criteria that can be met for, say, like a grade or a class where if everybody has the access and the teacher is willing, they can start teaching new material via video in real time?
Well, as of right now, because we don't have guarantee that all kids are on that, you know, I see where you're going with that question, and I can see the value in having that as a opportunity to have that back and forth dialogue like you would in a classroom with the new material. At this time, unless all kids have access to that, you know, we are asking teachers to not do any new teaching during those Zoom sessions. But I can see where, you know, a classroom setting where you might have the entire class and all the kids are available, that at that point you could. But at this time, we can't guarantee that. Or, you know, if somebody's internet drops out in the middle of it, we just don't want to be expecting kids to have to be there on that Zoom conference to learn that new material. If for whatever reason, you know, they can. And that if we don't want to set it up where that's the only place that kid is getting that brand new material.
If they
Mr. Pedersen, oh, sorry, go ahead, Barbara.
If they do record the session, if for some reason the child is not available at that particular time, that they could still at least benefit from seeing the real time in the past.
Yeah, at this time though, we're very cognizant about that recording. The New Hampshire state law about it's illegal to record a session unless you have the permission of all parties involved. So, you know, we're very cognizant about that because of some, you know, some issues that have come up with Zoom classes in other states and in other districts. You know, we're really trying to make sure that we protect the privacy of our students and our teachers and make sure that we are following the laws and doing it the right way and looking out for the best interest of students and teachers. So with the pre-recording for new material, we're asking teachers to do it as sort of a pre-recorded session with just them, not with students being involved with that or the recording session.
Okay, I understand these are tricky waters.
So teachers are pre-recording sessions, uploading them, and then they can do informal sessions that are not recorded through Zoom. Is that what's going on? But you're just not introducing new material unless it's pre-recorded.
That is correct. Yes, where more and more teachers are starting to do some pre-recorded lessons where they are, you know, introducing new material, and that is available on Google Classrooms. The Zoom sessions right now are just for answering questions, maybe having a discussion, doing a Q&A session with kids, but it's not for doing new material.
Okay. Thank you. I don't use Zoom for new material because if you do want to record it, it's a huge file to upload. So we use our own internal learning management system where I work. Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the attendance plan? If we could maybe move to special ed?
I just had a real quick thought. It's not really a
Sure.
question for anyone, if that's all right.
Sure, go ahead.
So I know we've been talking about how it's obviously optional, and I think it's a good idea that it's optional both ways. I understand why that might make things difficult, but I think the administration of the schools and the teachers, as they continue to ease into this process, I think we need to see more teachers starting to employ Zoom and more interactive learning like recorded screencasts, because I've heard from a lot of students that, you know, they haven't had any Zoom classes yet, and it's been active for 6 school days now. So I think we got to keep pushing for teachers to try and learn to do that. And I think it's great that we're doing professional development sessions for that. So I'm just really in support of trying to push the teachers to, if they can, keep doing those Zoom lessons and interactive teaching. That's all I had.
I agree with you, Kyle. It's just that we need metrics to show that the progress is that we're making improvements from previous weeks.
But we'll work on trying to get some way to track that because it's, you know, it's not an easy, I understand what you're saying to see if more people are using it. I do understand that there's some ways that you can track Zoom, but people are using other platforms like Screencast-O-Matic, they're using Google Hangouts. So we should just, we'll have to do some thinking about that. I'll talk to the superintendent when we set the agenda for next week and see about how we can show that there's improvement in that respect.
Dr. Farah?
Yep, Sheila.
Before you move on to special education, because I believe that's our next thing in the agenda, I do want to ask a couple of questions about this grading. I understand we are grading, and that is in the last section of this particular executive summary. And am I correct in saying that grades just closed? For high school, is it?
So yes, I was going to speak to grading. So yes, Q3 just closed for the high school. On the 6th was the last day of Q3. So we are still asking teachers to grade in the same, sort of categories that their class had been set up in. And teachers are being asked to use, those same grading ways that they had been using, and in terms of, like I said, the category weights, but also in the differentiation as far as, different kids, different assignments. They are being adding some flexibility with the kids in this situation. Teachers are sort of changing some of the assignments that they had been doing. Maybe a traditional test that they had used and planned on. They've changed it into maybe a project or a different way to assess those kids. But grading is still occurring. And the expectation is that grades are still updated and that kids are still getting graded in the same manner as they would have during quote unquote normal school.
Okay, so as far as middle school and high school, we're still using Power School, correct?
That is correct, yes. Teachers are supposed to be updating grades in that platform.
Can we reiterate that somehow to our teachers? Because I am getting a lot of messages that grading is not being updated as well as it should be.
Okay.
Same grade for 3 weeks. So, teachers seen it, but is not updating the Power School in a timely fashion. So what's happening here is these parents that are now teaching at home or are trying to help at home, they really don't know how they're doing because the grades aren't coming in. So they don't know if they're in the right spots. And, so I think collaboratively, it helps the student, the parents, and the teacher to know we're going to the right direction. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Agreed, yes. So the expectation is that teachers are supposed to be updating Power School every 2 weeks. I know I send out a weekly sort of message to all teachers at the secondary level, and one of the aspects in that is grading. But I will remind teachers that they should be grading. It's a professional expectation of all teachers.
I'm sorry, did you say every 2 weeks?
The expectation is grades have to be updated at least every 2 weeks. That's, we'd like teachers to update it weekly. And that's going on, that's during quote unquote normal school. That's the expectation, is every 2 weeks grades are updated.
Yeah, I think during this time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Metzler, I thought a few years ago we were at every 5 days. But I think this expectation needs to be moved up a little bit because we have parents at home trying to teach their children and help out their children, and they might be having a hard time. So, to make sure that these parents are successful in helping their children, this has to all work together here. So I think it should be a little bit more frequently than that, to be honest with you, Mark.
Okay, I can ask teachers to update grades more frequently. It's one of those things that teachers should be updating grades.
I agree.
I highly recommend if parents are struggling, supporting their child, reach out to the teacher and encourage and ask the teacher for help. Ask the teacher questions. Our teachers are.
That's the other thing. Is there a timeline on teachers getting back to students? Has that been set in stone that, 24 hours should not go by before you're hearing from students because they're stuck or getting back to students?
Yes, we've asked it from the beginning, from week 1, we've asked teachers that they should be responding to emails within 24 hours.
Okay.
Priority given to students and parents.
Okay.
But we have asked that within 24 hours, you have to be getting back to students.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, and just a follow up to that, because I think Sheila makes a good point here with the fact that you're only requiring teachers to update grades every 2 weeks. You are using your assignments, completion of assignments as part of your attendance requirements for the DOE. I think we need to be doing this a lot more frequently than every 2 weeks. So I can, as a student, drop off the face of the earth for 9 days and no one's going to know until day 10 when the teacher says, oh, I think I'll go in and update the assignments. That's concerning to me in terms of this attendance requirement.
I hear you. I understand. We as teachers are with these weekly assignments, teachers might be getting 100+ assignments on a Friday when the assignments are due. So for them to get those assignments, get them graded and get them all put in that day, within a week, we are asking teachers to, try to get grades updated and grades put in. A lot of what we're encouraging teachers to actually do is, they don't actually have to put in the numeric grade right away, but if they're missing an assignment, put in a missing. But that's what a category, or excuse me, a indication we can make on PowerSchool. So we can ask teachers to put in a missing, so we know right away if kids are missing assignments, and then spend that time grading it. I mean, you look at some English teachers who have 100+ essays to grade. The turnaround time, is not instantaneous on something like that, or lab reports that have to get read and feedback on. So, we are cognizant of the amount of work that we're asking teachers to get, and especially when they have, hundreds of assignments all coming in at the exact same time.
Mark, what I'm talking about is the teacher has looked at the assignment, but has not updated any grades in PowerSchool. So you can go in and see that the teacher has looked at it, but the grades are not updated.
Okay.
That's my problem. So the parents don't know if they're guiding their child correctly. It's, these parents are not professionals. They're not professional teachers. They're doing the best that they can, but they need some support to know, yeah, I am doing this correctly. I mean, it's been a while since I've been in high school and middle school. So, I just I'm hoping for a more collaborative effort.
Okay, so I think Mr. Pedersen is probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, kind of gotten this point. So I think the next time we'd like to see an update. I understand about getting 100 assignments on a Friday, and I understand why you're assigning them on Mondays, but to be fair to the teachers, I think we need to look at how to make this a little bit more distributed over the course of the week so that students are getting more feedback than once every 2 weeks. So do you think you can maybe come back to the board in 2 weeks with something that kind of is more reassuring? And Dr. Metzler, if you disagree with me, feel free to jump in to make sure. I just worry that I know with my own students, without frequent feedback, you tend to lose them.
Well, I certainly don't disagree with the need for communication. I want people to, a couple things. First of all, this is a time where we're engaging in certainly professional courtesy, both professional courtesy for the teachers, professional courtesy for the parents, and certainly the students. So, there's going to be a learning curve for many folks. The other misunderstanding people have here too is our remote learning is not anything, it resembles the Blizzard Bag program, but it's not the Blizzard Bag program. So the Blizzard Bag program required 80% participation for a data count. Attendance and participation are two entirely different things. And not that I encourage or support the fact, but we do have kids that come to school and they're there, but they don't participate. So, we're trying to find multiple measures, multiple ways to find out who's engaged, how often they're engaged, how to find the disengaged and get them to check back in. So this is a little bit more complicated than just mandating everybody do everything in the next 5 minutes. We need to extend that professional courtesy both ways and work it out. And you made some good points earlier, Dr. Farah, about individual parents. Reach out to the teachers, and if you struggle with the communication, then please, the building principal. And if you're still unsuccessful, we certainly at the central office are willing to step in and help in any way, shape, or form. But I just want to caution people, professional courtesy is really an important aspect of what we do. Our teachers literally were thrown an entirely different working condition. Hey, figure this out, and we want you to do it in the next day. Remember, week 1 was supposed to be a planning week. We jumped in on day 3. We didn't take the whole week. We took a measured approach. I believe we're building. A couple of you have made points that things will continue to get better, and I do believe so. I think people's comfort levels will get better. I think the skills will definitely improve, just like anything. And I think the collegiality piece, teacher to teacher, they're building off each other's strengths, if you will. And so I'm optimistic that this will continue to get better, and certainly Timberlane will have a great model for remote instruction. But we need to have some patience, certainly a ton of support. And I'll get back to it one last time. Professional courtesy is really something that we need to extend, especially to our teachers and the families that they serve.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just one point with the grading? I mean, I do notice, and I can only speak for what I see as a parent, that the grades are in Power School. I heard that teachers have 2 weeks. Honestly, I think most grades are in sooner than that, but I mean, maybe there are some that are not. But even if the grades aren't in right away, the teachers are in Google Classroom. I do see a lot of comments pretty regularly on assignments, kids asking questions, teachers giving feedback. So even though the grades might not be there, the participation and the feedback a lot of times is there for parents to look at. I don't know. Do we have any video or a screen recording that we could send out for parents to know how to access their children's Google Classrooms if they don't have that already, so that they can look in if they want to?
Well, so can I just jump in and make a point to that?
Mm-hmm.
That parents can request to be invited into a Google Classroom. There is an option that teachers can have, so then parents can also see the sort of the stream that's happening there. So I highly recommend that if parents are curious and parents want that level of support to add to their own children, that they should reach out to the teacher and just ask the teacher to be added as a guardian, parent or a guardian. There is that option in Google Classroom. But as far as
Right.
like screen,
But Mark, backing it up way before then, I think we have a lot of parents who don't even know that that is an option to
Gotcha.
ask for. So is there a way to send out, I know the students are getting, it sounds like daily emails or something from their school. Is there a way to get an update to parents, just to update them what's going on with the Google Classroom, and again, remind them that they can have access to that with steps on how they can gain access and see that if that's something that they would like?
One of the things, I'm sorry to jump in here. One of the things, remember we went with it was just a short plan to a couple weeks to 3 weeks to 6 weeks, and obviously now it's looking like much longer. And so I'm trying to work smart with the resources that we do have, but loud and clear, if we're going to expect parents to have this level of partnership for as sustainable for a long period of time, and we don't even know, it could even go into the fall. We could have a resurgence. We could be doing this again next year. I think that professional development or those parent help kind of resources, I think that's something we're going to need to build, and I think, we have some, and there's certainly tips and ways that we can help parents, immediately, but we may have to do, something similar like we do for staff, the professional development for parents that are interested in it, checking in some sort of way that we can electronically, remotely, if you will, provide those kind of supports for parents. So I think I hear what you're asking for, Jen. And I think if this is going to be a really long-term plan, which it's beginning every day to look like it will be a lot longer than perhaps most of us were hoping for, I think that's something we're going to need to build, and that's a conversation we can have at the superintendent's leadership team, and certainly with Ken Henderson very much involved in building some sort of resource for parents.
Sorry, I keep forgetting I'm muting my mic. If we could move on to the special education update.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. In your board packets this evening, you should have 2 pieces of paper, the executive summary, and then also an individual student plan. Since we last met on April 3rd, Massachusetts governor lifted the enrichment program, which was pretty exciting news because now all of our out-of-district students are receiving their services. And that plan template that you have is what we need in New Hampshire to document all of the services that are provided. We did receive updates from New Hampshire today regarding guidance to special ed directors regarding reasonable effort, and that it should take the place of 3 specific types of efforts, either by email, phone call, or mail, to make sure we're reaching out to every student and documenting the services that we're able to provide. They touched on compensatory services, and they did provide insights that for families that feel compensatory services are needed, they will not be in a one-to-one component, meaning that if they have 2 times 20 a week, if they're refusing services now, we have to document that, and then we will have to look at reasonable effort, which I spoke to you last week about as being the new way to measure compensatory services when we come down the line. There's still more information to be provided from the state and federal government, and we're waiting on that. But I really don't have any more of an update unless you have questions regarding special education in district, out of district. It's actually been kind of a nice week where things are moving forward for us, and we're hopeful that that will continue.
Thank you. So I guess the question I have is more contractual. So we're still paying all the providers, even though we may not necessarily be sending students there?
Actually, our students went remote, Kim, so there's a 10-day window within special education that we were all advised by legal counsel to watch. We are now well into providing the services. We do have some families that have said they're trying to work through the academic responsibilities, and then they'll take on new services. But in terms of our contracts, the CARES Act is being more clearly defined. We have vendors that have not provided service, so they're not charging us. We have other service providers that have gone with new options to look at ways to provide service. We also have medically fragile students in the district, which at this time, as you can well understand, families just don't want to take the chance. And so very minimally, we're looking at the medical services that are provided. We really don't have service providers that aren't providing a service, either through what we are now working on with the video presentation may be different as we get people trained and on board. But there is outreach to families. You know, all service providers are reaching out to see what they can do and make those contacts with families. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
You did, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions on special education? Moving on.
Sorry,
Sorry, Sheila, go ahead.
Only because I've received a couple of emails today, and so I need to talk about this. On our elementary and middle school level, what exactly are we doing with the OTPT speech? I understand we can't go one-on-one, but how long before we can get these services up and running? Maybe
Well, we're
a couple
following.
kids at a time.
Can you give me that last part of the question, Sheila? Again, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
I said, I know that we can't do one-on-one. I understand that. But can we do, you know, 2 elementary kids with an OT person, with their parents with them? Something to get this up and running for these parents so that they have some sort of support?
Well, I'll back up and give you a sense of what we actually are doing. Virtually, I'm meeting with the elementary school special ed teams, and the OT, PT, and related service providers are there. Now that we've gone to that next level of video presentation, we are waiting for families to sign consent that they're willing to participate. Once we receive that documentation, many not so much the middle school, but the elementary school is looking at ways for maybe speech and OT to combine a time. I've had calls from families saying, you know, I can't have 30 minutes with the speech and language pathologist and then 30 minutes with OT. I'm still working. I need to be able to coordinate something. So they're working on plans, but for some of our families, they've yet to sign the permission. So that's the first step. The second step is when they sign that permission, once the professionals are trained, they actually have activities up now that they can do, and they've been phone conferencing. So they're helping in that way. And then the next level with this video presentation would be to combine professionals so that there's 2 professionals helping with 1 student.
Perfect. Now, when do you think, once the consent is signed, that the video conferencing can happen?
They would have to set the schedule, and we are staying with the 2 professionals. So again, as in general ed, we are trying to get professionals up on board with this new form of participation. So all those pieces coming on board, it would take whatever time it takes. It depends on the learning curve of the professional. But that being said, the video piece is not, if they're not doing the video, they're still doing the outreach, which is what the New Hampshire state had asked us to do originally, is just make sure you're making contacts with families. And I would say that if you're getting emails from your constituents, if you could send them to us or encourage them to speak at the team level, because the communication I'm receiving is that they are doing their outreach. Some families are saying they don't want to do it right now. They want to wait a little bit, but I'm sure as we go further into this and it's going to be more long-term, to answer your question, I think we're going to have more buy-in. But I don't have a crystal ball to say to you how much
I understand.
will be. Yeah, I don't have a sense of how the training is going for related service. I do know that in certain buildings, it's moving forward a little bit faster than others, and that's really because the parent consent is there, the expertise of the professionals that deliver the service is also there. So hopefully within the next board meeting, we can have updates to that, because I've heard that that's really what you'd like to see, is the progress, the progression of moving forward in this.
Now, I have one other question, and it should be an easy one. Are IEP meetings still happening? Meaning, you know, by regulation, by federal regulation, we have to have these IEP meetings by certain dates. Are those meetings still going on?
They are. They're virtual meetings. And we actually are up. I did give you information last week regarding the percentage of compliance. And that's information that's provided by the state. We continue to move forward with our special education meetings. And I take care of the elementary data to input to the state. I'm a little bit behind, but I'm still keeping that going as well. And as we've been on the air, special ed case managers are sending me their information to update. So it is consistently moving forward.
All right, great. I just wanted to make sure we're still, you know, going forward and in compliance. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, so moving on to food service.
Yes, Kim, I think everyone should have an executive summary on food service assistance during remote learning. And I want to thank the board for your support on this matter. When we last met on the 31st, on March 31st, the board had requested that my office look into the options and our options for providing food assistance if needed and to gauge what that need was. And obviously a lot has changed since this remote learning experience began almost a month ago now. And our responses from a survey that was sent out last Friday evening were that there were approximately 260 students or families who identified students with a need. And we had sent out a phone message, email, and had requested as well, after we were able to obtain some of that information, those results, on a Google form. We had asked our principals to reach out and make sure that we had not missed anyone in the recording, and to do some outreach, and they did that. And we came up with over 260 students with a need. And we rolled out a program that we were able to roll out because the USDA had actually granted a waiver, which they published on April 2nd, which allows our district to participate in what they call a summer serving option, which allows a lot more flexibility, coupled with a number of other waivers that had already been issued, in providing meals in the manner way in which we're providing them. We have Monday and Thursday, we have meals being prepared at our central kitchen and being sent to designated locations in the community. Those designated locations, just so everyone knows, are Atkinson Academy, Danville Community Center, TLC at Sandown Central, and Pollard Elementary. We are serving in those locations from 11:15 to noon, again on Monday and Thursday. Mondays, we're able to offer a 3 lunch and breakfast option. And on Thursday, we're able to offer a 2 breakfast and lunch option. And we had our first serving today. And I believe that we had served, about 160, if I'm not mistaken, what those counts were on that today. So I'm pretty pleased with having been able to get this program up and running so quickly. That the USDA, the board, I think everyone has sensed the momentum of what is going on in our communities, and all the support that we've received in launching this program have really been noteworthy. So I'd like to thank the board for that. We will be receiving federal reimbursement on those meals that we serve as well as an offset to costs. So those rates are listed on the executive summary that I provided. So overall, it seems like things are going well. So any questions or comments?
Yeah, Jeff, I do have a question. In regards to the location for Danville, I guess, I was just wondering why wasn't the elementary school used instead of the community center like in the other districts?
A little further off the road. It's not as centrally located. It's not that much farther up the road, but it's certainly not, I think the community center is a little bit more downtown. Your town hall, I believe, is a little bit more downtown as well.
Well, actually, to Sean's point here, that those 2 buildings are maybe a mile apart, maybe a mile and a half. And I'm just thinking if people are a little bit weary about having to go out more publicly, that the elementary school would be a better location. It's off the main road. The community center is right on the main road.
Duly noted. Is it something that we should consider changing, moving? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that tomorrow the superintendent and I will have a discussion about setting the agenda for the next meeting. I think from what I was told anecdotally that we need to take a look at maybe looking at trying to send those meals out further. I'm not sure how many actually, I know how many were made, but how many people actually came picked up. So I don't know. I don't know if it's the location or if it was just getting started, but I'd like to have a conversation, not really about how to make it work better. And my other question is, I think you mentioned 260 students. What is our number on free and reduced lunches in the district in a normal period?
I don't have that at my disposal right now. I don't have that at my disposal. I can get that for you though.
I'd appreciate that, because I'm just trying to get a sense of, is this number greater, less? Are people not identifying themselves? I know you sent out a survey, so, and I know people, I'm sure your staff reached out. I'd just like to know that we're getting out to these people that need food. And
All
that
right.
we're also going to follow up and see who might need it moving forward. It looks like Dr. Metzler is going to come in here.
Yeah, great. I think and don't hold me exactly to the number. We hover right around 20%, I believe, for free and reduced lunch. What's unique about the current situation is we'll have some people that are on free and reduced lunch that aren't interested in the program. We have people that maybe qualify but don't want to be part of the program that may be interested or may not be interested. We have people that wouldn't qualify but maybe they need the food now because of the situation they're in terms of work. It's really kind of a moving target. I think what I did send something out earlier today, just to let everybody know that basically everybody's eligible. So anybody that wants, and I actually even tweeted out a picture of what one of the actual lunches and breakfast kind of combos would look like, just the average kind of meal. So yeah, we can.
But I was told that they were incredible. What was put together today? I did not see it, but if they want to drop one by, no, I'm just joking. I was told they were truly
literally tweeted out the picture, of what the actual lunch, one of the average looked like. So we can discuss that more tomorrow. We have some outliers too. I'm trying to encourage parents, if they don't have any transportation, please reach out to one of our buildings and we'll just figure it out. What that means as far as making sure that we can get the food to the people that need it. And that's basically, I think it'll be a work in progress. I think more people may need these meals as time goes on too, so that number may grow as well. But I commend obviously our food service, our bus company, all the people that are involved in doing this. It went really well today, and I think it's only going to get better. So thank you to all those people.
Kim, can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Jeff, where were these lunches made? Which kitchen?
The high school.
The high school. Okay. And who actually put these meals together? Was it our food service people, or was it Whitson's people, or?
It was Whitson's and our food service people.
So Whitson came in?
Yep.
So they're providing the food, I take it?
Yes.
Okay. And did our custodians come in to clean this kitchen before they came in?
I'll let Gary address that.
I'm still here. Yes, they did actually. And they're cleaning on Monday. They come in, they sanitize that kitchen on Mondays.
Okay, great.
And I spoke with John, and we're going to do a Monday and a Friday cleaning every week. Full sanitization.
So Monday after they leave?
Correct. No, Monday before they're there. I'm sorry. Yes, Yes, Monday after they leave, and Friday after they're done on Thursday.
Okay.
Not in there on Friday.
I have a question.
And I will say this, I was there to witness the assembly of these meals going out, and as Kim said, they looked delicious actually.
They really did look
they,
very good.
they,
I saw the
they
pictures
did a really
myself.
good job today. I'm really impressed at how they did it.
Now, do we have one bus going to each town, one special education bus?
We do.
Okay.
May I just make a comment? So I just really want to genuinely thank Mr. Dowd and all the people who've been supporting him in this effort. I think it's fabulous that you were able to turn this around and get reimbursed. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. It looked really fantastic.
An absolute pleasure to be able to meet that need in the community now, and really a big thanks to John Fratello, because he was able to pull it together so quickly, and he does such a nice job, all the time for us. And this was just a great thing. So thank you all.
I do have a couple questions.
Sure.
So I did get the emails, the surveys. I'm not sure. So there is a waiver right now that this lunch service is available to all students in the district. This is not just people who qualify for free and reduced, correct?
Absolutely, Jen, and I can't make that more abundantly clear. We have that discussion of how it compares with our free and reduced. It's definitely not, this is not a free and reduced program. This is anyone who has, any of our students who have a need. Thank you.
How can we get that information out to the public? Because this isn't something that, I don't want people to feel like this is like a, gosh, what do I want to say? Like a poverty issue where if you show up and get your lunch, this is available for everybody. Even a benefit for, listen, we have every single parent right now. If you're fortunate enough to be working still, that's great. But it's, kind of hard when you've got little ones running around and you're trying to get lunch ready for them, when wouldn't it be nice just, okay, like get their lunch, get them settled and be able to work. I do think it still might be a challenge for people getting out and picking up those lunches at those locations. And I guess we can get to that if we get to the bus contract piece of it. And could we set something up to deliver those lunches to those kids if we're paying for the buses already? But I think that's another discussion. But I think importantly, just trying to get the message out to all families that this is a service that the USDA is providing for all families right now during this crisis. This is not a free and reduced lunch situation that we're in.
Jen, I can't thank you enough for the emphasis on that. That's really a very important message for this program.
So how do we get that message to the families? Because I don't know if they're all listening right now.
Well, in the communications that we've sent out, I've tried to make sure that in every communication that had been that had been part of that overall message. That this program is open to everyone. This is not a free and reduced qualifying type program. It's not out there. It's not a requirement.
But I think all the emails that maybe I'm mistaken, but I think all the emails that I got said, families in need. And when we typically hear that term in need, it's usually, a financial insecurity, a food insecurity, some, in need, I think, carries a certain connotation for people rather than this is a program that the USDA has opened up to all students in our district.
I think that's something that definitely needs to be going out there to parents. I don't know, even if it's one of those robocalls that, go out from time to time from the building principals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sounds like my kids would prefer the lunch that they're preparing than the lunches that they're getting from me. I don't know. I didn't see the tweet. I'll have to ask them.
And I guess when I put out there in need, it really speaks to the fact that there would be some general need, and it doesn't necessarily have to be food insecurity or financial insecurity. It can be any type of need. So it's something to think about, Jen, and I'll keep that on the top of my list here as we send out further communications to make sure and see how we can message that out. Make sure we can do a good job at that.
Okay.
And can we keep that as or take that as an action item that you'll come back to us with? I'd like to keep an update on this food service program. I just feel there are a lot of people out there that could avail themselves of this. People even that are working and now don't have issues with having to deal with everything. So, all right. Moving on, the next topic is contractual obligations. I do not think that we are going to enter into a long conversation about this. Board members have received communication from council this afternoon, as did the superintendent, regarding considerations on contracts. And I think that the board members should read that before we have a discussion, and we may need to have a discussion in non-public regarding that. From my quick read, and Dr. Metzler, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like most of the action is going to need to come out of your office in terms of responding to some of the questions.
I have the same understanding that you have.
Okay, so board members, you'll see that in your email. Consider that privileged and confidential from council, and we will take that up next time in our meeting. Okay, sorry. Moving on, the next thing on the agenda is district clerk compensation. This is an action item in your agenda packet. We have basically a summary from Caitlin Hilbert, who is our current school district clerk, regarding the number of hours that she spent on service as the district clerk during her time period. She can't attend, obviously. Well, I guess she could have come in on Zoom, but she did a very nice summary of the hours. It appears that this takes approximately 20 hours, potentially more hours if you had a recount. There's also been, since she wrote this, the addition of some communications regarding the withdrawal that we need to make sure get wrapped up to be sent up to the Department of Education. So I think we talked before about taking some sort of action in regards to the compensation. Mr. Dow, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the compensation is 200 or 250.
I believe it's actually in the past 100 per session, 100 for the initial session, and then there's a recount 100. It obviously isn't it doesn't really match the level of work involved.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to propose, though I don't think I'll make the motion. I would say that we should maybe look at adjusting that up to $500 in this next budget year. I'm sure in a $70 million budget, we can probably find a few $100s for that clerk.
I'll confirm we can find that funding.
Okay. Sheila?
I'll make that motion. $500 for the district clerk as a stipend.
Second.
Okay, Sheila makes a motion. Lee?
I second.
Lee seconds. Any further discussion on that motion?
So there was just one other thing she asked for, and that was to say she didn't have to physically be at the SAU. Is that's separate from this motion, or something we'll take up right after?
She's saying that she doesn't think that that's a necessity, but I think that's really up to her or who is ever in that position if they feel that they can handle this remotely. She's just recommending that they be allowed to work remotely. I don't think we dictated that she couldn't do that. As long as it's feasible and the clerk gets what needs to be done that evening. I don't have any objections, and we're not dictating that she be there.
I
This
think
is
you
her
just need
first
to have
year,
the-
so I think it was a learning experience for, how it runs. And some of the towns are moving towards different ways to tally the votes and things. So, does that answer your question, Barbara?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. All right, so we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, I'll ask Kat to call the question. Take the roll call vote, sorry.
Mr. Boyle,
Abstain.
Mr. Doobie,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Mockamer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Count is 801.
Okay, thank you. So that motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the administrator's report.
Thank you, Dr. Farah. In your board packets, you have quite a few executive summaries. I know we've gone over. We also have an executive summary on our COVID-19 protocol. Certainly, you can take a look at that. We did try to get everything in today by noontime, and I know some things came in late this afternoon, so I apologize for the timeliness of some of those documents, but we'll continue to try to get those documents all in your hands by noon of the day of the meeting. That way you have the afternoon before we get on these Zoom calls to take a look at them. The last piece of the administrator's report has to do with the student trip statement, and we've worked on this with council, so bear with me, it's long. So as many of you know, we've had several student trips scheduled throughout the spring: France, Germany, Switzerland, Spain, Portugal, Montreal, and Hawaii, just to name a few. Due to the current pandemic, these trips have been canceled. Many parents have made the district aware of the difficulties they are encountering with respect to obtaining refunds from these travel companies. We, myself, the administration, the school board, we're all sympathetic to the families affected by these cancellations. We want to do as much as we can to support them as they try to obtain full refunds. We find some of the refund practices outrageous. However, for trips arranged through third-party providers, where families have made payments directly for trips arranged to the third-party providers and have entered into agreements or contracts to which the district is not a party, the district's ability to interact with these companies is very limited. Nonetheless, we are working with legal counsel on these issues and are monitoring efforts by the New Hampshire Department of Education regarding the same. We've asked our legal counsel to reach out to the companies on the district's behalf in the interest of the families to demand better refund options and to make it clear that their treatment of our students and families will impact any decision to utilize their services in the future. Because these companies have no obligation to respond to our demands, we can make no promises regarding a possible outcome. All we can do is assist as we move forward. We'll provide updates as best we can. In the meantime, parents are encouraged to contact their own legal counsel, negotiate directly with the companies, and please contact the Consumer Protection Bureau of the New Hampshire Attorney General if you have complaints regarding the conduct of these companies. So, we've been working, trying to get the best packages possible. Some of these travel companies are great, and we've been able to really take care of our families. And some families, and I found outrageous, we're still being charged by some of these companies. There's no way they could deliver a trip. So how are they still billing and automatically taking money out of checking accounts even as of last weekend is beyond me. I don't get that. I would encourage families, if there's credit card or any kind of automatic payments, please stop them. Please stop them. And again, we're going to help and assist any way we can. I know the school board's on board, Dr. Farah, and certainly Kristen. We've had conversations about how we can support families. So that's the student trip statement. We'll send out something more official to the families directly impacted tomorrow. And that's all I have for my administrator's report.
Okay, thank you.
I would add to that, the Massachusetts Attorney General's office, for those that have been involved with EF Tours, which is one of the tours, they are engaged. So I would encourage parents to reach out to the Massachusetts Attorney General's office as well.
Okay, thank you, Lee. Okay, moving on to personnel report.
We do not have a personnel report for this evening.
Okay. Moving on to committee reports. If you go into your agenda packet, you should see the current list of committee assignments based on what people told me. It looks like we still have an opening on curriculum and assessment. We need another person for that. Do I have any volunteers? Come on. I can't commit to that because I don't know what my teaching schedule is in the fall.
Kim, I might be able to do that short term, but I don't know that I'll be able to stay on that long term. Depends what my situation's like.
Right. Well, why don't we put you on it for the short term? I don't think anything's going to happen in the short term. Or are they still having meetings, Sarah?
We haven't planned anything yet. We were, I'm hopeful that we were going to be able to get together in May. I think we're just waiting to see, who was going to be appointed in Sue's place. Just because the way the policy reads, we need to have those two people from the school board at the meetings. So I think we were just kind of in a holding pattern.
Okay. So I'm sure they're doing meetings on Zoom. So you and Jen can coordinate as to who's going to be, I guess, chairing that committee from the board. Okay. CIP committee. Brian, did you want to take the lead on this and work with Mr. Dowd to get this up and running? We need to get this CIP resurrected.
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you. Sarah's going to take lead on this check registers. Sheila will be the alternate. The personnel committee will stay the same. Energy, Barbara, thank you for stepping up on that. And Brian's still on there. Policy, same people. Sean is the alternate on policy. Brian and I are on facilities. Safety, Sheila, Chris, and Jen. Finance, I have Brian and Sean as an alternate. Strategic planning, Lee and Kristen. General Assembly of Delegates, Sean. Wellness, there's an opening on the Wellness Committee since Sue left. Does anybody want to volunteer for that?
When is it? I'll do that. Was that Quarterly? Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, thanks, Brian. So Brian will do wellness. The last committee is down on the bottom. It says withdrawal study. It should say perhaps withdrawal committee. I don't know if we need a committee for this. Soon the board is going to need to be going into a non-public with council to have a discussion about how we're going to proceed with withdrawal. I will probably plan that for sometime next week. I know everybody's social calendar is pretty open. So we'll probably plan, though next week there's an SAU meeting on Wednesday and a board meeting on Thursday. So it maybe it's, I don't know, it could be as soon as Monday or Tuesday next week. I'll contact board members and contact council about that. So I don't know if the board at this point feels like you need a committee. If not, I think we'll just call it the withdrawal committee, and I'll just sit on the committee for now with Kristen. I'm volunteering Kristen. She didn't unmute, so I guess I'll take that as she accepts. And if we need more people, we'll. Are you accepting, Kristen?
Yeah, I'll accept.
Okay. As we move forward, we will work on that. One thing with the withdrawal, the board, I do not remember if the board did this. We need to notify Hampstead that their lease will be no longer in effect as of July 2021. I know there was a motion made by this board. There should have been a letter that went to the SAU board that indicated that. So I'm going to, Sheila?
Is that something that Jim should be doing? A letter from our lawyer stating that the lease to SAU 55 would be over as of June 30th, 2021.
That's a good question. Maybe that's a question we should have when we.
I think it needs to be all legal like.
That's a good question. That's a question that should come. We should discuss that in our non-meeting with council.
Okay. I'll write it down.
Yes, please. I don't think so, but maybe. All right, so I think that's it on committee reports. As far as I know, there's no correspondence. I do just try to send you any correspondence that we receive. There was I think it was a vendor register that went out over the last week. Is there any other business? Are there any, I am planning to have a meeting next week. Hopefully it won't be too long. Is there any other business or any other items that you want on the agenda for next week? I will be meeting with the superintendent tomorrow to set the agenda for next week because it's a short turnaround. Jen?
Well, there was an article in the Union Leader today about the DOE color coding districts. I don't know if anybody read that. I'm just curious if we know what color code we are in their reading.
You mean based on how many COVID cases they have?
No, it was from the DOE. I have to pull up the article again to see. It was just rating schools on how they were doing as far as
compliant.
Oh, I don't know anything about that. Dr. Metzler, do you know anything about that?
No, I'm not aware. I don't read the Union Leader.
Kristen? Oh, sorry, you were just, your Hollywood Square lit up. Okay, well, we can check into that, Jen. I don't know. I'm not aware of it.
Okay.
You know, we're on several calls a week with the commissioner, and I don't recall them even mentioning this. So let me look into this. Certainly a question I can ask. You know, we have another call tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it was quoted in the article, so that it was something that came from DOE. That's why I was asking.
Okay, I mean, I have a call tomorrow at noontime. I can certainly see if we can get an answer or some information on that.
Okay, yeah, there was a quote here. We're keeping a hot list of schools struggling in this area, Edelblut said. We do have 8 schools in yellow, 1 that remains red. Says others are in green. So yeah, if you can get an update, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other business? I do not think we need a non-public. Just so you're aware, I do have a conference phone now at my house where there were just discussions with council about security over Zoom, which if you read the papers, you know there are Zoom bombings going on. So council felt that the best idea would be to conduct any non-publics via conference call. So if that is going to need to happen, I'll initiate it here from the conference phone that the SAU has purchased, or Timberlane purchased. We needed a new one anyway. And that way the board or boards, if the SAU board needs to go into a non-public, will have access to conference calling. So that's how we'll handle the non-publics as needed until we can get back in person. All right, if there's nothing else, I will adjourn the meeting at 9:06. Thank you. Thank you all the staff who attended. I can't see everybody, and the members of the public. And we will see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.